Welcome back to Golden Rule Radio, your weekly recap of the precious metals markets and the news that moves the markets. And what news are we looking at today, Robert?
Dollar down some.
It is down a little bit. Gold's back up a little bit.
Popping a little bit. Market might be bouncing a little bit here. So I don't know that this is the reversal we've been waiting for by any means. But we do have gold up, silver up, and dollar has been just skyrocketing higher, but now it's pulled back a little bit. But I'd say, generally speaking, with the next few months, this is a time where the weakness in gold, I think, is a huge opportunity to be buying. Whether this is the bottom that we just saw, whether bottom's 2 months from now, this time frame before now and January is, I think, your opportunity to get into metals prices before they break back to new all-time highs. Would you say that that's a fair statement going into the next couple years? This is probably your next 2 to 3 month window, I would say.
Sure, and I think you've got to take a step back and kind of look at things on a more global scale to make that call. Because, yeah, we're having a phenomenally strong dollar index year. And I think it's important to emphasize that second word there, the index. I mean, the dollar index is up 17% since the beginning of the year. And realistically, gold is down as of right before we walked in here today. I double checked. Gold is down about 9.2% since the beginning of the year, January 3rd. So let's take that in context. Okay, so gold is down about 60% of what the dollar is up, at least in terms of dollars.
It's a good way to put it.
So now let's go a little bit north. Let's go up to Canada. Canada also is having a pretty strong year with the Canadian dollar, and gold is down about 2.1%. in Canada. So let's check how far down it is in some other of the major world currencies. So let's check the euro. Gold is down. Wait.
Not down.
Yeah, in fact, it's up. Gold is up 6.2% against the euro. It's up about 1.3% against the Australian dollar.
Let me guess, the yen's going to be the winner.
It's up 13.7% against the Japanese yen this year and 13% against the British pound this year. And in fact, the British pound just put in the lowest exchange rate against the dollar.
Since the Queen was born, probably?
Yeah, I think really ever since we've gone into this fiat currency system.
There may have been a touch around where we are in 1985. I think I saw something like that.
Yeah, on a global scale, like what are we seeing right now? Are we really seeing weakness in the precious metals market? I would argue absolutely not. I think what you are seeing is incredible strength in the US dollar, flight capital from other countries moving into probably short and medium-term treasury bills here in the States because we have been raising our interest rates. But you are seeing a lot of weakness in the U.S. on top of that. And here's an interesting disconnect. There are two questions I'm getting a lot over the last couple weeks. Nobody's asking me, why is gold down? So I find that pretty interesting. The first time it's broken out of this like 2-year-long trading range and gone below that 1685 mark down into what, the 1630s yesterday. Nobody's asking me that, which I do find a little bit surprising. But what people are asking is, where's the money coming from in the US dollar? And where do we put our assets safely? Because the S&P's back down to the June lows. The S&P's off 24% again for the year.
Well, the one currency you didn't mention with relative gold terms is Bitcoin.
Right? Well, Bitcoin's off. That's the second thing we're going to talk about
that's the
today.
Winner. If you measure Bitcoin against gold, pretty sure gold's
I'm glad you brought Bitcoin
100%?
up. It's not quite segue time, but that is the second thing I want to talk about today is the cryptocurrency market. Because that, I would argue, this is actually the question I'm getting from almost everybody calling right now. It has to do with the crypto market, so we'll look at, and Joe Biden, that we'll look at here in a second. So I think it's important to look at these things, as the whole forest, not just the individual trees. I mean, gold is having an exceptional year in a year where the dollar is having an exceptional year. But the dollar's having an exceptional year internationally, even though inflation remains over 8%. Government deficit is down. Deficit over the previous 12 years was about 2.7 trillion. It's down to about 1 trillion over the last 12 months. So deficit spending has come down a little bit, which is good. But we're still looking at an inflation rate at about 8%. And the government is still deficit spending. So when I look at that, I think of inflation and interest rates. The people who are really going to suffer the most is not federal government spending. They're not going to cut back spending. So it's the average individual American who needs to, say, borrow to get a mortgage. So that's my big concern. There's this huge disconnect between international dollar versus domestic purchasing power.
You can say that again.
Or there's a huge disconnect between the value of gold internationally compared to the value of gold versus the US dollar, or say Bitcoin internationally compared to the value of Bitcoin domestically. But Bitcoin is still incredibly popular, so popular, in fact, that now it's segue time. This is something I did want to bring up, and I'm bringing this up from the standpoint of a lot of our listeners are clients of ours, and you have called and we have talked about some of this. So what I'm encouraging clients to do, if you would like to get a deeper understanding of this potential crypto Federal Reserve Bank connection that people are asking about, what you're asking about is Executive Order 14067. You can go just search for Executive Order 14067. Biden signed it back in March, I believe, of this year. If you'd like to learn more about what people are actually looking at as far as government intervening within the cryptocurrency markets and the possibility of the US dollar working in some type of blockchain technology. What you're going to end up reading is primarily the big concern, of course, is illegal activity in cryptos, which, surprise, surprise, is the same argument they make about things like gold or greenbacks. Remember the cashless society discussion we had like 5-10 years ago? That hasn't disappeared.
Well, why don't they make an illegal argument about the guys who actually get prosecuted for manipulating actual markets, gold, silver, other markets like that? Doesn't seem like they want to call that out.
White-collar crimes don't apply to...
But they have prosecuted some traders like that. And for a company that's that big, like a bank, it's just a cost of doing business. They pay the fine and move on and keep doing things.
Well, yeah, of course.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I just had to throw that in there.
I think that was in Fight Club, right? When the cost of doing the recall is greater or less than the cost of the lawsuits associated with the recall. We don't do a recall.
Right.
Remember that?
Right.
So, yeah, that still takes place. So the potential utilization of blockchain for the US dollar, as well as concerns over illegal activities in the crypto market. I'm not saying that's an illegitimate concern, but the question, of course, is just how much of it is actual illegal activity, probably less than the government is concerned about. There are a lot of potential things that this could go to, which is very legitimate, all the way up to fear-mongering. So there's a whole spectrum of concerns that I have, and maybe as this progresses, we can talk a little bit more about the concerns over the government being able to maintain a blockchain database of all civilian transactions everywhere in US dollars. You can think about the potential ramifications there. Maybe we'll talk about that in future shows. But what does catch me is, granted, like you mentioned, right, Bitcoin is way down, and Bitcoin is 38% of the entire crypto market. So it's a huge whale among all the other fish in that market. But we're looking at a total global market cap on Bitcoin of only about $1 trillion. It's actually a little less than $1 trillion, which isn't a significant sum of money when you talk about the federal government's deficit per year is $1 trillion or more dollars. Total global capitalization of gold is $11 trillion. So gold is 11 times the size of the cryptocurrency market. So if the Federal Reserve is putting this much emphasis and this much focus on something that is incredibly popular, but also very small compared to the grand scheme of things, what happens when they start looking at other markets? Things like gold, things like equities, things like the bond market. Where does it stop where the concern over free trade becomes an actual threat to the US dollar?
That's a good point. Yeah, I think all that tells me is the more they push for that into a controlled environment like that, the more I kind of want to go the other direction. It's why a tangible asset in your hands is a good idea, which is what we do. We deal with precious metals, physical, delivered to you, or in IRAs, the real stuff. So if you want to talk to us about it, give us a call. It's 800-525-0000. 9556.
Yeah, you can find us on our socials at Facebook. We're at McIlvaney Financial. And Twitter, we're at ICA Gold. Or you can find more information on our website at McIlvaneyICA.com. Thanks for listening. Have a great week.